Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? The envelope-shaped paper bags common in the US 150 years ago were impractical for carrying goods. Blank because they were the only paper bags that could be mass-produced. These bags dominated the market. That all changed in the 1870s when industrial designer Margaret Knight patented a machine to make flat-bottomed, foldable paper bags. So option choice A says, however, this seems to be the correct answer because between the first and the second sentence is a contrast, where the first sentence highlights how the envelope-shaped paper bags common in the US 150 years ago were impractical for carrying goods. The second sentence highlights how these were the only paper bags that could be mass-produced, and therefore these bags dominated the market. So there is a contrast between these two sentences, and however correctly highlights this contrast, so A seems to be the correct answer. B. For instance. This is incorrect because for instance implies that the second sentence is an example of what was discussed in the first sentence, but this is not the case because the first sentence highlights how the envelope-shaped paper bags were impractical for carrying goods. The second sentence highlights how these were the only bags that could be mass-produced and thus they dominated the market. So there's a contrast between these two sentences, and the second sentence does not serve as an example of what was said in the first sentence. Therefore, B, for instance, is incorrect. C, thus. This is incorrect because this implies that the second sentence logically is based off logically from the first sentence, but this is not the case because it introduces another point that highlights a contrast between these two sentences. Therefore, C, thus, is incorrect. D. In other words. This is incorrect because in other words implies that the second sentence will restate or rephrase of what was said earlier, but as before this is not the case because the second sentence highlights something new, which is that these paper bags were the only bags that could be mass-produced, and thus they dominated the market. So D, in other words, does not make sense here. And therefore the correct answer is A.